A billionaire came home with a termination letter in his pocket. He had proof, photos, timestamps, missed chores. He was done with his maid. But when he walked inside, he found something he never expected. His 5-year-old son was reading out loud for the first time. His daughter was tracing letters on a cardboard box, and the woman he was about to fire was sitting between them on the floor, whispering words of encouragement. She wasn't cleaning, she was teaching. He froze. The letter fell from his hand. Then he picked up her notebook and read page after page of lesson plans she had written in secret. What he discovered made him realize he had been wrong about everything. This is the story of a maid who became a teacher, a father who almost destroyed the best thing in his children's lives, and a moment that changed all of them forever. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you like the video and subscribe to this channel.
Let me introduce you to Rosa Morales. She was 43 years old, though she looked older. Life had carved extra lines around her eyes and mouth, the kind that come from worry, not laughter. She arrived at the Pierce mansion every weekday at 6:45 a.m., driving a 2007 Honda with a cracked windshield and a back seat full of cleaning supplies she bought with her own money. She was not a housekeeper by choice. Back in Honduras, she had been a teacher, 2nd grade. 27 kids in a room with no air conditioning, but she loved every single one of them. Then her husband got sick. Then he passed. Then the bills piled up like snow in a storm. She left her daughter with her mother and crossed the border legally. Work visa, background check, the whole process. She did it right. For 6 years, she cleaned other people's homes. She never complained, not once. Her uniform was always the same: black pants, a white polo shirt, and a blue apron. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her hands were rough from bleach and scrubbing. She carried a small notebook in her apron pocket, not for work, but for herself. In it, she wrote lesson plans, math games, reading exercises, little reminders of who she used to be. Jonathan Pierce did not know any of this. To him, Rosa was an employee, a line item on his monthly expenses. She came, she cleaned, she left. He never asked about her daughter. He never noticed that she stayed 15 minutes later every day to fold the twins' pajamas into animal shapes. He never saw her sit on the floor and help Leo tie his shoes when the nanny was on her phone. Jonathan was not a cruel man. He was just absent. A tech billionaire who had built a payment processing company from nothing, sold it for 9 figures, and then spent the next 3 years trying to build something even bigger. He traveled constantly. His wife had left 2 years ago. She took the jet, the Paris apartment, and her dignity. She left him the twins, the mansion, and a silence that filled every room. He hired Rosa because his previous maid quit. He never interviewed her himself. His assistant did it over the phone. So when Jonathan started noticing small things, Leo saying a word in Spanish, Maya drawing flowers instead of robots, the twins asking for the lady on weekends, he did not feel grateful. He felt suspicious, and that suspicion turned into something uglier. Let me introduce you to Rosa Morales. She was 43 years old, though she looked older. Life had carved extra lines around her eyes and mouth, the kind that come from worry, not laughter. She arrived at the Pierce mansion every weekday at 6:45 a.m., driving a 2007 Honda with a cracked windshield and a back seat full of cleaning supplies she bought with her own money. She was not a housekeeper by choice. Back in Honduras, she had been a teacher, 2nd grade. 27 kids in a room with no air conditioning, but she loved every single one of them. Then her husband got sick. Then he passed. Then the bills piled up like snow in a storm. She left her daughter with her mother and crossed the border legally. Work visa, background check, the whole process. She did it right. For 6 years, she cleaned other people's homes. She never complained, not once. Her uniform was always the same: black pants, a white polo shirt, and a blue apron. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her hands were rough from bleach and scrubbing. She carried a small notebook in her apron pocket, not for work, but for herself. In it, she wrote lesson plans, math games, reading exercises, little reminders of who she used to be. Jonathan Pierce did not know any of this. To him, Rosa was an employee, a line item on his monthly expenses. She came, she cleaned, she left. He never asked about her daughter. He never noticed that she stayed 15 minutes later every day to fold the twins' pajamas into animal shapes. He never saw her sit on the floor and help Leo tie his shoes when the nanny was on her phone. Jonathan was not a cruel man. He was just absent. A tech billionaire who had built a payment processing company from nothing, sold it for 9 figures, and then spent the next 3 years trying to build something even bigger. He traveled constantly. His wife had left 2 years ago. She took the jet, the Paris apartment, and her dignity. She left him the twins, the mansion, and a silence that filled every room. He hired Rosa because his previous maid quit. He never interviewed her himself. His assistant did it over the phone. So when Jonathan started noticing small things, Leo saying a word in Spanish, Maya drawing flowers instead of robots, the twins asking for the lady on weekends, he did not feel grateful. He felt suspicious, and that suspicion turned into something uglier.
Let me take you back 3 months before Jonathan walked through that front door. Rosa's day started before the sun. She woke at 4:30 a.m. in a small one-bedroom apartment she shared with 2 other women, both cleaners, both sending money home. She made coffee in a cracked mug, ate half a banana, and packed the other half for later. Then she walked 15 minutes to her car because she did not want to wake her roommates with the engine. By 6:45 a.m., she was inside the Pierce mansion. The house had 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, and a kitchen larger than her entire apartment. Rosa did not care about any of it. She cared about 2 things: doing her job perfectly and the twins. Leo and Maya were 5 years old when she first met them. They were small for their age, quiet in a way that worried her. Their nanny, a woman named Patricia, spent most of her time on AirPods, scrolling through her phone while the twins watched cartoons. Patricia was not mean, she was just checked out. Rosa noticed this on her second day. She was vacuuming the living room when she saw Leo sitting alone by the window. He was not crying, he was just staring at the driveway, waiting for a car that never came. Maya was on the couch, hugging a stuffed rabbit with one ear torn off. Neither child spoke to each other. Rosa turned off the vacuum. She knelt down next to Leo and asked, very softly, "Are you okay?" He looked at her. Then he looked away. He did not answer. That night, Rosa wrote in her notebook, "Leo doesn't trust adults. Maya hides her feelings behind the rabbit. Both need structure." She did not plan to get attached. She had been a cleaner for 6 years. She knew the rules. Come in, clean, leave. Don't get involved. But she was also a teacher, and teachers see things that other people miss. Over the next few weeks, Rosa started making small changes. She folded the twins' clothes into animal shapes because she remembered that her students used to smile when she did that. She left a small drawing on their bathroom mirror, a sun, a flower, a simple good morning in both English and Spanish. She started cleaning the playroom first, not last, so that if the twins came down early, the space was ready for them. Patricia did not notice. Certainly, Jonathan did not notice. But the twins noticed. One morning, Maya walked into the playroom and saw that Rosa had arranged her stuffed animals in a circle, like they were having a tea party. Maya stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she sat down in the middle of the circle and whispered, "Hello." Rosa pretended not to hear. She just kept wiping the windows. By the second month, a routine had formed. Rosa would clean from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. while the twins ate breakfast with Patricia. Then, from 9 to 9:30, Patricia would take a break, her phone calls, her coffee, her time away. That half hour became Rosa's window. She would sit on the floor of the playroom and help Leo with his letters. He was behind.
The preschool teacher had mentioned it to Jonathan, but Jonathan had dismissed it. "He's 5, he said. He'll catch up." Rosa did not say anything. She just brought her own materials. Flashcards she made from cardboard boxes, an alphabet chart drawn with markers, a counting game using buttons from an old coat. Maya joined first, then Leo. Within 2 weeks, they were both asking for the game before Rosa even finished cleaning the kitchen. She never told anyone, not Patricia, not Jonathan, not even her roommates, because she knew deep down that if Jonathan found out, he would not see a teacher helping his children. He would see a maid overstepping, and she needed this job. So she hid it. The notebook stayed in her apron, the flashcards stayed in her car, and every day she gave 30 minutes of her life to 2 children who had stopped believing that adults had time for them. Jonathan, meanwhile, was about to notice, and when he did, he would not ask questions first. He would assume the worst. The first sign came on a Tuesday. Jonathan had been home for 4 consecutive days, a rare break between investor meetings. He was not spending time with the twins. He was in his home office, reviewing documents, taking calls, existing in the same house, but not the same world. Around 10 a.m., he walked to the kitchen for coffee. The house was quiet, too quiet. He passed the playroom and stopped. Rosa was on the floor with Leo and Maya. That was not unusual. What was unusual was what she was holding, a small whiteboard, handwritten words, math problems. She was teaching. Jonathan stood in the doorway for 30 seconds. He watched Rosa point to the number 7, then hold up 7 fingers. He watched Leo repeat the number in English, then again in Spanish. He watched Maya write the number on the board, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Then Rosa looked up and saw him. Her face changed. Not guilt, fear. She stood up quickly. "Mr. Pierce, the playroom needed organizing and the children wanted—" "How long?" His voice was flat, not angry, just cold. "Sir?" "How long have you been teaching my children behind my back?" Rosa's hands were shaking. She clasped them behind her. I am not a teacher anymore, Mr. Pierce. I was just helping them with—" "You're a maid." He said it like a fact, like gravity. "You clean. That's what I pay you for." Leo looked up at his father, then at Rosa, then back at his father. The boy's eyes were wide, confused. He did not understand what was happening, but he understood the tone. Maya grabbed Rosa's apron and held on. Jonathan noticed that. He noticed his daughter clinging to the maid, and something inside him tightened. He did not fire her that day, but he wanted to. Instead, he walked back to his office and made 2 calls. First to his assistant, find out everything about Rosa Morales, background, references, visa status, everything. Second, to his lawyer, draft a standard termination letter, just in case.
Over the next 3 weeks, Jonathan started watching Rosa. Not openly. He would appear in doorways unexpectedly. He would check the security cameras from his phone. He asked Patricia, the nanny, pointed questions. Does she spend time alone with them? Does she touch them? Does she say anything strange? Patricia, eager to please, exaggerated. "She's always with them, Mr. Pierce. She even brings her own books sometimes. I don't know what she's teaching them." Jonathan's suspicion grew into something darker. He was not a man who trusted easily. His ex-wife had made sure of that, and now a woman he barely knew was spending unsupervised hours with his 5-year-old twins. He started keeping a folder, notes, dates, observations. April 3. Rosa arrived at 6:40 a.m., 10 minutes early, stayed in the playroom until 7:30. Twins were laughing. Patricia was not present. April 7. Leo said gracias to Patricia. Rosa was nearby. She did not correct him. April 12. Found a handmade flashcard in Leo's backpack, numbers 1 to 10 in Spanish, Rosa's handwriting. By the end of the 3rd week, Jonathan had made up his mind. He did not need more evidence. He needed action. He printed the termination letter. He put it in an envelope. He decided he would do it himself, face to face. No assistant, no phone call. He wanted her to know exactly why she was being let go. He chose a Thursday. He told no one. He planned to arrive at 11 a.m. when Rosa would be cleaning the upstairs bedrooms and the twins would be with Patricia. He wanted to catch her alone. But the universe had other plans, and what Jonathan walked into that day would change everything he thought he knew. The 3 weeks between Jonathan's first suspicion and his planned termination were quiet torture for Rosa. She did not know she was being watched, but she felt something shift. The air in the house changed. Patricia stopped leaving the twins alone with her. Jonathan started appearing in doorways without a word, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. The cameras, always there but suddenly noticeable, seemed to follow her. Rosa did what she always did when things got hard. She worked harder. She scrubbed baseboards that were already clean. She organized the pantry by expiration date. She polished the silverware until it shone like a mirror. She told herself if she did her job perfectly, nothing else would matter. But something else was already happening. Leo stopped talking to her. It happened overnight. One morning she knelt down to help him with his shoes and he pulled away. He looked to Patricia first, then back at Rosa. His small face was confused. He had been told something. Rosa was sure of it. "Leo," she said softly, "are you okay?" He did not answer. He just walked to the couch and sat down next to Patricia, who put a protective hand on his shoulder and gave Rosa a look that said, "Stay away." Maya was different. Maya still came to her, but even Maya seemed cautious now, glancing over her shoulder before speaking to Rosa in a whisper.
One afternoon, Maya tugged on Rosa's apron and said, very quietly, "Patricia said you're not supposed to play with us anymore." Rosa's heart cracked, but she did not show it. She smiled. "Patricia is right," she said. "I'm here to clean. That's my job." Maya frowned. "But I like when you play." Rosa touched the girl's hair, just for a second, then stood up and walked to the kitchen. She stood at the sink with her back to the room and let one tear fall into the soapy water. Just one. Then she kept cleaning. The private costs started piling up. At home, her roommates noticed she was quieter than usual. She stopped talking about the twins. She stopped pulling out her notebook at night. One evening, her roommate Rosa found the notebook under the couch and handed it back to her. "You're still a teacher, Rosa," Rosa said, "even if no one pays you for it." Rosa took the notebook and put it in a drawer. She did not open it again for 2 weeks. Her daughter, back in Honduras, now 12 years old, called every Sunday. Rosa had always told her about the children she helped, but now, when her daughter asked, "Mama, how are the twins?" Rosa said, "They're fine. I just clean now." Her daughter paused. "You sound sad." "I'm not sad," Rosa said. "I'm tired. It's different." She lied, and her daughter knew it. But what could a 12-year-old do from 2,000 miles away? The lowest moment came on a Wednesday. Rosa was cleaning the upstairs hallway when she heard Patricia talking on the phone in the nursery. The door was cracked open. Patricia did not know Rosa was there. "I'm telling you, she's obsessed with them," Patricia said, laughing. "She brings her own little school supplies. Mr. Pierce is probably going to fire her. He asked me to keep notes." Rosa stopped moving. Her hand was on the vacuum. She stood perfectly still. "I mean, who does she think she is?" Patricia continued. "She's a cleaner. She doesn't even have papers for half of them. My cousin works in immigration, and she said—" Rosa did not hear the rest. She walked away, quietly, carefully. She went into the downstairs bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. She was not crying. She was past crying. She was thinking about her options. There were not many. If Jonathan fired her, she would lose her income. If he reported her for anything, even a made-up reason, she could lose her visa. If she lost her visa, she would have to go back to Honduras, back to her daughter, but without savings, without the money she had been sending for school fees, without the future she had been building for 3 years. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. "You are not a teacher here," she whispered. "You are a maid. Remember that." She stood up. She washed her hands. She went back to work. But that night, she opened her notebook again, not to write lesson plans, to write one sentence. "No matter what happens, I helped them, and no one can take that away." She did not know that Jonathan was coming for her. She did not know about the folder, the photos, the termination letter, but she knew something was coming. She could feel it in the way the house had turned cold. And still, she showed up the next morning, and the next, and the next, because that is who Rosa was. The morning of the termination, Jonathan arrived at 10:45 a.m., 15 minutes earlier than he had planned. He parked in the garage, not the driveway. He wanted silence. He wanted surprise. He walked through the mudroom, past the kitchen, and stopped at the base of the stairs. The house was unusually quiet. No Patricia on the phone. No cartoons from the playroom. Then he heard a voice. Not Patricia's, not Rosa's. A child's voice. Leo. He was reading. Jonathan froze. Leo had never read out loud before. The preschool teacher had said he was behind, that he might need extra help. Jonathan had planned to hire a tutor next month. But here, now, in his own home, his 5-year-old son was reading.
He followed the sound to the library. The door was open a crack, and what he saw stopped him completely. Rosa was sitting on the floor with Leo and Maya, but she was not teaching. She was listening. Leo had a book in his lap, a picture book about a caterpillar, and he was sounding out each word, slowly, carefully, his small finger moving under the letters. The caterpillar was hungry, Leo said. That's right, Rosa whispered. Keep going. Maya was leaning against Rosa's shoulder, tracing letters on a piece of paper. The paper was not from a store. It was cardboard, cut from a shipping box. Rosa had drawn lines on it with a marker, handwriting practice lines. Jonathan pushed the door open. Rosa looked up. Her face went pale. She started to stand, to explain, to apologize, but Jonathan held up his hand. Don't, he said. Don't say anything. He walked closer. He looked at the cardboard, the handmade flashcards scattered on the rug, the whiteboard with today's date written in Rosa's neat handwriting, the small jar of buttons she used for counting. Then he looked at Leo. His son was still holding the book, his finger still on the word. He looked up at his father with an expression Jonathan had never seen before. Pride. I read it, Papa, Leo said. The whole page. Jonathan's throat tightened. He did not know what to say. He had come here to fire this woman. He had evidence. He had a folder. He had a termination letter in his pocket. But his son just read a page of a book. Because of her. He looked at Maya. She had not moved from Rosa's shoulder. She was watching him with those quiet eyes that always seemed to see more than a 5-year-old should. Then Jonathan noticed something else. On the floor, next to Rosa's apron, was a small notebook. It had fallen out of her pocket. The cover was worn. The pages were soft from use. He picked it up before she could stop him. Please, Rosa said. Her voice was barely a whisper. That's personal. Jonathan opened it. He expected cleaning notes, schedules, supply lists. What he found was something else entirely. Page after page of lesson plans, handwritten, dated, organized by week. Week of March 12th, focus on letter sounds. Leo struggles with B and D, use visual cues. Week of March 19th, counting to 20.
Maya understands patterns faster than Leo. Let her lead. Week of March 26th, introduce simple Spanish words. Both children are curious. Leo repeats everything. Week of April 2. Leo read his first word today. He did not tell Patricia. He only told me. I almost cried. Week of April 9. If Mr. Pierce finds out, I will lose this job. But these children need someone, so I stay. Jonathan turned page after page. His hands were shaking, not from anger, from something he could not name. He looked up at Rosa. She was standing now, her arms wrapped around herself, her eyes fixed on the floor. She was not defending herself. She was not begging. She was just waiting, waiting for him to finish what he came to do. But Jonathan was not the same man who had walked through that door 10 minutes ago. He closed the notebook. He pulled the termination letter from his pocket. He looked at it. Then he looked at his children. Then he looked at the woman who had taught his son to read when no one else had tried, and he did something neither of them expected.
Jonathan did not fire Rosa. He folded the termination letter, put it back in his pocket, and walked out of the library without saying a word. He went to his office, closed the door, and sat in the dark for 30 minutes. Rosa spent those 30 minutes cleaning the kitchen. Her hands were still shaking. She had seen the letter. She knew how close she had come. But she also saw something else in Jonathan's face, something she could not name. Confusion, yes, but also something softer, something that looked almost like shame. She did not pack her things. She did not leave early. She finished her work, said goodbye to the twins, and drove home like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. That night, Jonathan did not sleep. He sat at his desk with Rosa's notebook open in front of him. He read every page, every lesson plan, every note about Leo's struggles and Maya's quiet strength, every observation about their fears, their habits, their small victories. Then he made a call, not to his lawyer, not to his assistant. He called his sister, Claire. Claire was a child psychologist. She lived 3 states away. She was also the only person in his life who told him the truth without caring how it landed. "It's late," she said when she answered. "What's wrong?" Jonathan told her everything. The maid, the teaching, the notebook, the termination letter he had almost served.
Claire was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You were going to fire a woman for loving your children?" "I was going to fire her for overstepping." "She didn't overstep, Jonathan. You were absent. She stepped into the space you left empty." The words hit him like a physical blow. He wanted to argue. He wanted to defend himself, but he had no defense. Claire was right. "What do I do?" he asked. "First," Claire said, "you apologize. Not with money, with words, with honesty. Second, you ask her what she needs. Third, you shut up and listen." Jonathan hung up. He sat in the dark for another hour. Then he opened his laptop and started writing. Not a termination letter, a different kind of letter. The next morning, Rosa arrived at 6:45 a.m. like always. She parked in her usual spot. She walked through the mudroom. She put on her apron. She started gathering her cleaning supplies. Then she saw it. On the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker, was an envelope. Her name was written on the front in careful handwriting. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten note from Jonathan. Not typed, not printed, handwritten. "Rosa, I owe you an apology. I judged you without knowing you. I watched you without seeing you. I was going to fire you for caring about my children, and that is the ugliest thing I have ever almost done. I read your notebook. I saw the lesson plans, the notes about Leo's letters, the way you noticed that Maya only eats apples if they're cut into slices, the way you wrote down their birthdays after hearing them once. You are not a maid. You were never just a maid. You are a teacher, and my children are learning from you in ways I never could have taught them. I would like to talk. When you are ready, no pressure, no termination, just a conversation between two people who care about the same two small humans. Jonathan." Rosa read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her apron pocket, next to her notebook. She did not go find Jonathan right away. She cleaned the living room. She vacuumed the hallway. She wiped down the kitchen. She did her job the way she always did, thoroughly, quietly, with dignity. Then, at 9:30 a.m., when the twins were with Patricia and the house was calm, she knocked on Jonathan's office door. "Come in," he said. She stood in the doorway. He stood behind his desk. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Rosa said, "I have conditions." Jonathan nodded. "I'm listening." "I want to keep cleaning. I need the money. But I also want to keep teaching them, legally, with your permission, not in secret." "Okay. I want a contract, not a verbal agreement, something in writing that says I am allowed to tutor your children for 1 hour every morning." "Okay. And I want you to stop watching me on the cameras." Jonathan looked down at his desk. When he looked up, his eyes were red. "I already deleted the footage," he said. "All of it." Rosa studied his face. She was looking for lies. She found none. "Then we have an agreement," she said. She turned to leave. Then she stopped. "Mr. Pierce?" "Yes?" "Leo read that page because he practiced every night. He practiced on his own, in his bed, with a flashlight under the blanket. He did that, not me." Jonathan swallowed hard. "Thank you for telling me that." Rosa nodded. Then she went back to work. But nothing would ever be the same. The contract was signed 3 days later. Jonathan's lawyer drafted it. Rosa read every line. Claire reviewed it from out of state. It was simple, fair, and legal. Rosa would continue her cleaning duties from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Then, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., she would tutor Leo and Maya in the library. Her pay would increase by 40%. She would have full access to educational materials, paid for by Jonathan, and she would never again be watched on camera without her knowledge. Rosa signed her name carefully. Then she looked up at Jonathan. "One more thing," she said. "What's that?" "I want Patricia to stop telling the children that I am not allowed to play with them." Jonathan's face hardened, not at Rosa, at the information. "She said that?" "Yes, and she told them that I don't have papers, which is not true." Jonathan made a quiet sound, something between a sigh and a growl. "I'll handle Patricia." He did. That afternoon, he called Patricia into his office and terminated her employment, not because Rosa asked him to, because he reviewed the security footage from the past month and saw something he had missed before. Patricia on her phone while the twins ate alone, Patricia rolling her eyes when Leo asked for help, Patricia telling Maya that her stuffed rabbit was dirty and stupid. Patricia did not apologize. She packed her things and left within the hour. The twins did not cry. They did not even notice, because Rosa was already in the library, waiting for them with a stack of books and a small whiteboard. And for the first time in months, she was not hiding. The confrontation everyone expected never happened. There was no shouting match, no dramatic scene, no moment where Jonathan publicly admitted he was wrong.
The climax of this story was quiet. It happened in small rooms over several days between people who chose dignity over drama. But the real climax, the one that mattered, came 2 weeks later. Jonathan had to travel for a business meeting. It was a short trip, just 2 days, but for the first time he did not want to go. He stood in the front hallway with his suitcase, watching Rosa help Leo tie his shoes. "Papa," Leo said, "Rosa said you're coming back tomorrow." "That's right," Jonathan said. "Okay," Leo said. Then he ran off to find Maya. Jonathan looked at Rosa. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For not giving up on them, on me." Rosa shook her head. "I didn't do it for you." "I know," Jonathan said. "That's why I'm thanking you." He left. The house was quiet. Rosa cleaned the kitchen. She vacuumed the living room. She wiped down the bathroom mirrors. And then, at 9 a.m., she walked to the library. The twins were already there. Leo had the caterpillar book open on the floor. Maya had her stuffed rabbit. "Can we read the whole book today?" Leo asked. "Maybe not the whole book," Rosa said, "but we can try." She sat down between them. She opened the book to the first page. Leo put his finger under the first word. "The," he said. "Good," Rosa said. "Cat-er-pill-er," Maya said. "Together," Rosa said, "one word at a time." They read for 45 minutes that day. Leo finished 3 pages by himself. Maya drew a picture of a butterfly and gave it to Rosa. And at the end, when Rosa stood up to go back to cleaning, Leo grabbed her hand. "Rosa." "Yes, Leo? Will you be here tomorrow?" Rosa looked down at this small boy with his father's eyes and his mother's stubborn chin. She thought about the termination letter, the cameras, the sleepless nights, the fear in her chest every time she walked through that door. "Yes," she said, "I'll be here." Leo smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. And in that moment, Rosa knew something she had almost forgotten. She was not just surviving this job. She was doing what she was meant to do. Not because of the money, not because of the contract, because of 2 children who needed someone to show up. And she always did. 6 months passed. Rosa still arrived at 6:45 a.m. every weekday. She still wore her black pants and white polo shirt. She still cleaned the kitchen, the bathrooms, the living room, the hallways. But now, after she finished, she walked to the library and became someone else. She became a teacher again. The library changed slowly. Jonathan added a small bookshelf with children's books, real books, not just the old picture books from the playroom. He bought a proper whiteboard and mounted it on the wall. He ordered educational supplies from a catalog Rosa had marked with sticky notes. He never made a big deal about any of it. He just left the boxes outside the library door with a short note, "For Tuesday." Rosa never thanked him with words. She thanked him by showing up, by staying late when Leo was struggling with a new sound, by bringing cookies she baked herself on Maya's birthday, by writing her lesson plans in her notebook every Sunday night, even when she was tired, even when her roommates asked her why she cared so much. The twins changed, too. Leo stopped hiding.
He started reading out loud to anyone who would listen. To Rosa, to Jonathan, to the new nanny, a kind woman named Carla who actually played with them. By the end of 6 months, Leo was reading short chapter books. His teacher sent home a note that said, "Leo is above grade level in reading. Whatever you're doing at home, keep doing it." Jonathan framed that note. He hung it in his office, next to a drawing Maya made of 3 people holding hands. The tallest figure had an apron. The 2 smaller figures had curly hair. The drawing was labeled, in Maya's wobbly handwriting, "My Family." Jonathan did not correct her. The small act of grace came on a Friday. Rosa's daughter, Sophia, was turning 13. Rosa had requested the day off months in advance, but 2 days before, her car broke down. The repair cost more than she had saved. She could not afford the bus ticket to the airport. She could not afford to miss a day of work. She told no one. She came to work on Friday morning like always. She cleaned, she taught, she smiled at the twins. But Jonathan noticed something was wrong. He waited until the twins were with Carla. Then he found Rosa in the kitchen, scrubbing a counter that was already spotless. "What's going on?" he asked. Rosa shook her head. "Nothing, I'm fine." "You're scrubbing the same spot for 5 minutes." She stopped. She put down the sponge, and for the first time in 6 months, she let him see her tired. "My daughter's birthday is today," she said. "I was supposed to fly to her, but my car broke down, and I couldn't afford both, so I chose the car." Jonathan said nothing. He walked to his office. He came back with his phone. "What's your daughter's name?" he asked. "Sophia." "Sophia," he repeated. He typed something, then he handed Rosa his phone. It was a plane ticket, round trip, departing that afternoon, returning Monday morning. "Go," Jonathan said. "The house will survive, the twins will survive. Go see your daughter." Rosa stared at the screen. Her eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Pierce, I can't accept." "You're not accepting, I'm giving. There's a difference." She opened her mouth to argue, then she closed it. She took off her apron, she folded it carefully and placed it on the counter. "I'll be back Monday," she said. "I know," Jonathan said. She walked to the door. Then she stopped. "Mr. Pierce?" "Yes?" "Thank you." He nodded. "Happy birthday to Sophia." Rosa left. Jonathan watched her drive away in a borrowed car from Carla. Then he walked to the library. The twins were waiting for him. "Is Rosa coming back?" Maya asked. "She's coming back Monday," Jonathan said. "Promise?" Leo asked. Jonathan knelt down. He looked at his son, his daughter, the two small humans who had taught him more in 6 months than he had learned in 40 years. "Promise," he said. That night, Jonathan sat alone in his office. He looked at the framed drawing from Maya. He looked at the note from Leo's teacher. He thought about the termination letter he had almost served. The cameras. The folder. The fear that had made him see an enemy where there was only a woman trying to help. He opened his laptop. He wrote a short email to his assistant. "Cancel the search for a new nanny. We already have the right person. And increase Rosa's salary again. Double it, effective immediately." He did not send it to brag. He did not send it to be forgiven. He sent it because it was the right thing to do, and because some people are not employees, they are gifts, and you do not fire a gift, you honor it. The lesson learned? You cannot always see who is saving you. Sometimes they come without a title, without a degree, without anyone asking them to stay. They just stay. And the only question that matters is whether you are humble enough to notice before it is too late. If this story moved you, hit like and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this one waiting for you.